I watched my neighbor nearly tear his shoulder out trying to start that lawnmower. 1 pull, 2, and 5 more in a row like brute force alone could intimidate the engine into working again. The mower coughed weakly, metal rattled, and then silence. Even from inside my car, parked half a block away, I could see panic setting in, not confusion. Panic. His face turned bright red. Sweat soaked through his shirt. He slammed his palm against the mower handle hard enough to bounce the whole machine across the driveway. And for one brief second, I actually felt bad for him. Then I remembered what was inside the gas tank. A few minutes later, he stormed toward his car, an old, faded blue sedan. The sedan already sounded like it was surviving out of pure spite. He jammed the key into the ignition. The engine turned over roughly. Then he peeled out of the driveway like a man fleeing a crime scene. Technically, he was. I waited about 10 seconds before pulling out behind him. 3 streets later, the car sputtered once. Then again. Then slowly rolled onto the shoulder like it had finally given up on life altogether. Steam drifted out from under the hood, while my neighbor climbed out screaming at absolutely nobody. And all I could think was, you did that to yourself. The funny thing about revenge is that people imagine it feels explosive, like fireworks, like rage finally erupting. But most of the time, revenge feels quiet, cold, measured, like balancing a scale that's been crooked for too long. I drove back to the house, stepped out casually, and walked toward the patio. The red gas can sat exactly where I left it. I picked it up, empty. Every last drop gone. I remember standing there in the heat thinking, well, that confirms it. But to understand how I got there, standing in my driveway while my neighbor unknowingly destroyed both his lawnmower and his car, we need to go back 3 months earlier. Back to when I still thought he was just another annoying guy on the street. Back then, life on our street was painfully ordinary. Small lawns, identical mailboxes, people pretending to know each other better than they actually did. And honestly, I liked it that way. I was in my late 30s, recently divorced, working long hours, trying to rebuild some kind of routine that actually felt stable again. There's something strangely therapeutic about maintaining a house after your personal life falls apart. Mowing the lawn, fixing loose hinges, cleaning gutters, simple things, predictable things. When life becomes chaotic, routines start feeling sacred. And every Saturday morning, I'd grab the mower, pull the red gas can from the patio, and spend an hour cutting grass while half listening to sports radio. That's why I noticed the fuel problem almost immediately. At first, it was subtle. I'd fill the can on Monday, and somehow by Saturday, it already felt nearly empty, which made absolutely no sense. My mower had a tiny tank. I actually checked underneath the machine, thinking maybe fuel was leaking somewhere. Nothing. No stains, no smell, nothing. So naturally, I blamed myself. Maybe I forgot. Maybe I used more fuel than I realized. Maybe I was distracted. Looking back now, that was my first mistake. Decent people tend to rationalize bad behavior because they assume everyone else operates under the same moral rules they do. They don't. Then there was my neighbor, Rick. Rick had this strange habit of appearing anytime somebody on the street was outside doing something. Washing a car, taking groceries inside, working on the yard. Didn't matter. He'd just materialize nearby, pretending to casually exist in the same space. Always smiling, always talking, always watching. The kind of guy who borrowed tools and returned them broken. The kind of guy who treated boundaries like friendly suggestions. At the time, though, I didn't think he was stealing from me. Not yet. Then one night I set up an old laptop facing the backyard patio with cheap motion detection software. And the very first day, I caught him. 5 minutes after I left for work, Rick walked straight into my backyard like he owned the place. No hesitation, no nervousness, no guilt. He grabbed my gas can, unscrewed the cap, and calmly poured fuel into another container beside him. I just sat there staring at the screen, completely still. And weirdly enough, the first emotion I felt wasn't anger. It was disappointment. Because earlier that same day, he'd waved at me while checking his mail, smiled at me, asked how work was going. There's something deeply unsettling about realizing somebody can look you directly in the eye while quietly stealing from you behind your back. That kind of behavior changes how you see people. And once trust breaks, every normal interaction becomes theater. I didn't confront him. That surprises people. Most assume revenge starts with screaming. It doesn't. The most effective revenge usually begins with patience, because patience gives people confidence, and confidence makes them careless. So I kept waving at Rick every morning, kept smiling, kept pretending everything was normal. Meanwhile, every single night, I started filling that gas can myself, one bathroom trip at a time. Well, listen, I wasn't trying to poison him. I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. I just wanted greed to punish itself. That's all. I needed Rick to make a decision entirely on his own. And over time, I realized something important about him. He only stole when he thought I'd be gone for a while. That detail mattered. Because once you understand someone's weakness, you can build a trap around it. So one Saturday morning, I staged a performance. I carried bags to my car, checked the oil loudly in the driveway, talked on the phone outside about being gone all weekend, made the whole thing painfully obvious. Then, sure enough, Rick appeared across the street, pretending to check his mailbox, watching, always watching. I waved at him. He waved back. Then I drove away, but I didn't go far. I parked in a grocery store parking lot 15 minutes away and waited. That was probably the strangest part, the waiting. People imagine revenge feels exciting. Honestly, it felt more like fishing. Stillness, patience, quiet anticipation. After about an hour, I drove back home slowly. And the moment I turned onto my street, I saw him. Rick was violently yanking the starter cord on his mower like the machine had personally insulted him. The engine coughed weakly, then died. Again and again. His face turned crimson. Sweat poured down his neck. I almost lost composure right there. "Everything all right?" I asked. He looked furious. Piece of junk just stopped working. I nodded sympathetically, then watched him storm toward his car. The sedan roared to life. He peeled out of the neighborhood. 3 blocks later, the car sputtered violently, then rolled silently onto the shoulder, dead, completely dead. And standing there in my driveway, watching him slam both hands against the roof of that car, I finally understood something. Consequences work best when people create them themselves. All I had done was give greed an opportunity. The thing about people like Rick is that they never really learn lessons. They experience consequences, but internally, they still see themselves as victims. For days afterward, he wandered around the neighborhood furious at the world, blaming the gas station, the Mower company, cheap fuel, bad luck, everything, except himself. Meanwhile, neighbors started talking, quietly at first, then constantly. Turns out, once one dishonest act becomes visible, everybody suddenly finds the courage to compare notes. Missing packages, borrowed tools never returned, money owed, arguments, threats. The story stacked up fast. Nobody sounded surprised, only relieved. Relieved that someone else finally saw it too. That's the dangerous thing about toxic people. Communities normalize them for years because confrontation feels uncomfortable. Then one day, everybody acts shocked when the damage becomes impossible to ignore. A week later, I noticed sheriff deputies speaking with Rick outside his house. Not dramatic, not aggressive, but for the first time since I'd known him, Rick looked scared. A few days later, I overheard part of an argument through their open window while mowing my lawn. His wife sounded exhausted. Not angry. Exhausted. "There are warrants, Rick," she said. "He can't keep hiding forever." And suddenly, everything made sense. Rick wasn't just a thief. He was a man running from consequences his entire life. Then, by complete coincidence, I saw a flyer at the county office advertising the sheriff department's civilian ride-along program, and immediately an idea formed. Not illegal, not dangerous, just inevitable. I submitted an inquiry form expressing interest from Rick's address. Nothing forged, nothing elaborate, just enough for deputies to stop by personally. And 3 mornings later, they did. Rick stepped outside wearing an old gray sweatshirt, expecting a casual conversation. One deputy asked for identification. Rick froze, just slightly. But enough. The mood changed instantly. The second deputy stepped closer. Then came the handcuffs. No screaming, no dramatic chase, just inevitability finally arriving at his front door. And standing there, behind my kitchen blinds, coffee cooling in my hand, I expected to feel victorious. But honestly, what I felt was relief. Pure relief. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about restoration. Restoring peace. Restoring boundaries. Restoring the understanding that actions eventually catch up to people. A month later, Rick's house went up for sale. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood finally felt quiet again. The older I get, the more I realize most people don't change because of morality. They change because consequences finally become unavoidable. That's the real difference. Some people spend their whole lives mistaking kindness for weakness, mistaking patience for fear. mistaking decent people for easy targets. Eventually, that becomes expensive. And if you think people like Rick are bad, wait until you hear what happened when one grieving mother walked into a small-town church and exposed an entire family's lies in front of their own congregation. Trust me, that story made this one look merciful.